Once a preacher boy was told he couldn't preach it straight and strong. The 10 Commandments and perhaps the Golden Rule. No one wanted him to tell them what was right and what was wrong. So he asked an old-time preacher what to do. Just preach Jesus, born and crucified and risen from the dead. Just preach Jesus as he paid for sin with the precious blood he shed. Lord and Savior, King of kings, Son of God and Son of man. Just preach Jesus until Jesus comes again.
Welcome to the all-new SGNP with your host, Daniel Britt, and Southern Gospel Music Association President and gospel music fan favorite, Arthur Rice. Sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh, cry, and have a little fun. If you like what you hear today, please leave that 5-star review, subscribe to wherever you download podcasts, and listen. For back episodes of SGNP with some of your favorite people, go to www.southerngospelnewspodcast.com. What's wrong with living right anyway? Not one thing. And you're listening to SGNP.
Welcome to the Southern Gospel News Podcast. I'm Daniel Britt, once again here with Arthur Rice. I guess we'll have to get the cat out of the bag here and say your voice sounds a little different today. You're under the weather.
Sounds a little different today. It does. Yes. And the wonderful joys of COVID still here.
It's still with
here.
Us.
Man, yeah. It's about half my choir's been out with it, and I tell you, it's just it's been, as far as I know, this is the first time that Tammy had it last week, and I thought I was going to get by with it. Yeah. And then I came down with it this week. So, but as far as I know, this is the first time we've had it. So we've been very fortunate, but it's strange. It's a weird world.
Well, and this is probably the first time that we've been back together since your transition away from the Kingdom Heirs. So how is that new phase of life going for you?
Oh man, it is going great. It's been amazing. I mean, it's just been an amazing journey to see God move in all this, and just I just feel so fortunate to be a part of the church and the staff and what God is doing, and I'm telling you, He's been so real in the past several weeks. It's just been amazing, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it.
Yeah, and a new location for you now as well, right?
Well, actually, we're still in Sevierville. We still live in Sevierville. I'm just commuting back and forth on Sundays and Wednesdays for the most part. So most of everything I can do at home, and so that was kind of part of my deal. I've been over here almost 30 years, and so it's home. Tammy's family lives here, and the boys have a life here, and so at least for the time being, I think we're going to stay here, and as long as this works,
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, we're talking today to Mike Lefevre, talking about seasons of change, and we'll catch up with him on these changes that are coming up. How long have you known Mike, by the way?
Oh, man. Mike and I, go back to Kingsman Gold City days back early 80s. Yeah. And Mike's been a good friend all these years, and I've always thought the world of Mike. And, just one of my favorite people in the world. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Mike.
That's the truth.
It is. It really is. And to be almost 40 years in this business, that says a lot for your character, and says a lot for how you treat people and your humanity, and just your walk with Christ. And it's always impressed me, and I love him to death.
I do too, and we're going to get him on here in just a moment. In the meantime, I encourage you to check out the Facebook page for Southern Gospel News Podcast. You can see what's happening there. You can, of course, through all things social or internet-based, you can go back and go through the archives, because it all is alive and well there. You can go back and listen to any other episode. That's at southerngospelnewspodcast.com, and by the way, you can springboard to those social Facebook and whatnot from there. So, hey, Mike Lefevre, the Mike Lefevre Quartet on the way next here on the Southern Gospel News Podcast. Stick with us.
Hey, this is Darren, and I'm here for my buddy Mike Lindell and My Pillow. That's right, My Pillow. I got to tell you a little secret, and this is a true story. The other day I'm laying in the bed, I looked at Mary and I said, I'm going to get me some new pillows today. She said, what do you need with new pillows? You got them. I said, I got one that's decent. And I didn't know which one it was. I mean, I knew which one it was, and I pulled the cover off of it, and it was my pillow. The rest of them were these ones that we bought from TJ Maxx or Target or Walmart or somewhere that just had worn out their welcome. And you know what, guys? I feel like I needed new pillows. And she said, well, why don't you call My Pillow, because you like the one you got there, and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll help you out. You know what? I called, and guess what? They helped me out. They asked me what size I was. They asked me how I slept. Did I sleep on my back or on my side or on my stomach? What felt right? Feathers or, blah, 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 foam. They asked me all these questions. More questions than I ever dreamed about a pillow, and I got my new My Pillow in the mail, and I've slept right. You want that change in your life? It's real simple. 1-800-338-2330. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code word SGNP. That's right, the code word SGNP. And tell them you heard about this special offer. And when you use that code, you'll get a great discount from the folks at My Pillow. I use My Pillow. You should too. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code SGNP. My Pillow, the official pillow and sleep provider of Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Back now here with the Southern Gospel News Podcast, Daniel Britt, Arthur Rice, and we're welcoming our friend Mike Lefevre. Mike, you have really kind of shaken the world up in these past, I don't know how many years, well over a decade. I'm trying to remember back when the Lefevre Quartet first became a thing, but all good things seem to come to an end here, and we've got a new phase in life that we want to talk about with you. But first of all, we just say welcome, and you are loved amongst this camp here, Mike.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, and I love you guys too. I tell you what, and I heard Arthur talking about how far we went back, and when you said 40 years, it just really hit me.
I know. You don't think about it. It's like, man, that's been a long time.
Yes. We both were very young, though, right?
Yes, that's right. We were mere children.
Yes, that's right. But you know what? I love gospel music. I've loved the people in it, and it's a great place. It's hard. This decision, this phase or season of life, and I know, Arthur, you made that decision recently too.
Yeah.
And so this season in my life, it was a difficult decision to make, and I know if you're anything like me, I have. And folks may be out there, they can relate to this. I have trouble sometimes distinguishing between my will and the Lord's will.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard for me to tell the difference.
Yeah. We all struggle with that.
I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. I'm not even gonna make you answer the question. I'm just gonna make this statement and let it sit, because I think it's a true statement, regardless if this applies directly to this Lefevre Quartet decision or not. But I think coming through this pandemic, I think a lot of people took stock of what life is and what life could be and what the Lord may be showing us all. I think we all had our journey. No matter how good or bad or easy or whatever it was, we all took it differently. I like what they said, we weren't necessarily all in the same boat. We were all going through the same storm, but our boats were all a little bit different. Some were more luxurious yachts, others were little canoes that were about to capsize, but we all went through this storm together, so we have that. Anyway, I just think that brought a lot of, I think of that scripture, be still and know. And I think if we ever had a season where we could be still and know and then try to figure out, Lord, what are you saying? I just feel like these past 2 years have done that for us all.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think that it was eye-opening as far as being at home more. But one thing that plays into the equation with me is my age. And Arthur may be able to relate to this as well. I watched a lot of gospel music people that have been and stayed in gospel music for years and lived their life out on the road. And I've done that for the majority of my life. But there comes a time when, you look at, I don't have as many years ahead of me as I did behind me. Now, my calling on my life is still there. I always have a song in my heart. Mm-hmm. But I do realize that my wife and I need to take a little time and hold hands. That's that
Yeah,
was the best
yeah,
way for me to put it. And hang out, walk on the beach, and look
yeah,
at the stars together. And then, of course, my son Jordan played a big part in this because he is at a place where I was several years back. He's got two little boys, actually three sons. One of them's a little older, but the two smaller ones, 6 years old and 4 years old, and he's wanting to be their dad,
yeah.
and so I can relate to that. So there were a lot of things that seemed to fall into place as far as that goes.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a moment. So, in the quartet, you've got, of course, Mike, and Mike's our guest right now.
Yes,
We're talking about Mike's son, Jordan Lefevre, and then you also have Jay Perrick and Will Lane and Brian Elliott. Is that right? I get everybody here? Yep,
yes.
yep.
Now, when we announced our retirement and we knew this was coming, Will had an opportunity to join Mark Trammell, and so
Yeah,
I encouraged him to go ahead and do that
yeah.
while that opportunity was there,
Sure,
because
sure.
he wanted to continue on the road and that position was open and Mark needed
Yeah.
somebody. And I'll tell you, Will, there ain't none finer than Will. He is
Hmm.
a great
yeah,
person and a great singer. And so
yes,
I was excited for him to get that position. But during that transition, friend, a lot of people know him, Christian Davis is filling
Yeah,
in for us.
yeah.
And so he's doing a great job.
awesome.
Well, and Jay Perrick, I mean, I feel like you kind of brought him out of retirement. Now, I mean, how's he dealing with this?
Well, I'm just throwing him right back in. you
That's
know,
right.
it was a season in his life that he was ready
Yeah,
to get out, back on the road, and so everything just fell into place with that. I I I can't speak for him, but I can tell you that he's a trooper. He's
yeah,
been, I
yeah,
mean, he's got a song in his heart, and I know that God has a lot of great things in store for him as well. But I'll be honest with you, this has been a great, this, especially this past 3 or 4 years, even with COVID. It's been a great period for the Lefevre Quartet. We had some great music that came across our plate, and we were some great songs and great personnel.
oh yeah,
I've enjoyed traveling and singing the last 3 or 4 years probably as much as I ever have in my life,
that's good. That's
with
good.
the exception of when I was young and we used to travel back in the old days, Arthur.
Yes, that's right. In covered wagon.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, think back over, and I mean, listen, I think it's early. I want to even say even the teens, but I think definitely by the 20s, the Lefevre name started becoming really taking off in the professional sense, with Eva Mae and Urias and Uncle Alf and all that came in, and we could do a whole program on the history of the Lefevre name and the establishment there in Atlanta that became, really nationwide, worldwide, and then the groups that spun out of that, including the Neelands and whatnot. So, we could go all the way back, but for this purpose, I think we just, go back to 2005. What were you doing in 2003, 2004, leading up to the decision to start the Lefevre Quartet?
That was during a period where I had actually come off the road for a short time to raise my son
Mm-hmm,
and to
mm-hmm.
be a dad. And so that was during that period. And during that period, when I was off the road for a while, I think it was 99, I was certified. I went to rookie school, fire school, and I was certified as a firefighter, and I became an EMT.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I worked at the fire department, but I've always wanted to sing, so we got some guys together, and my intentions were, when we started this group, just to sing here and there on the weekends and enjoy myself every now and then, go out and sing. Like I said, I had a song in my heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was the
You didn't mean for it to
initially.
turn into a job, did it?
You know what?
Yeah,
That's funny thing how God sometimes has other plans for you.
yeah, yeah.
And so that there again, that's what makes this decision or made this decision so difficult.
Yeah.
But it just seems like when I looked at everything as overall, and it just seemed like this is where the Lord was leading us to go. But it did not come as an easy decision. And I mean, I keep referring to Arthur, but I'm sure, you know exactly how I'm feeling on this thing, because it's hard to say. I have a lot of people say, well, how y'all are doing so good, why would you do this? And all I can say is this: it just seems like the Lord has laid it on our heart, on my heart, Jordan, and this is the direction for us to go. Not an easy decision, though.
Yeah. Well, He puts that uneasy feeling in our heart when we know He's dealing with us, and
Right.
that can be about numerous things, but especially, I think for me, He makes you, the old analogy of how the eagle gets the baby bird out of the nest, he makes it uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's kind of, the way it goes. It's like just everything is, you think, boy, everything's perfect, and then just all of a sudden you just things aren't as comfortable as they used to be, and He's dealing with you, and that's when you start praying and seeking His will. And
very true. And I tell you what, I've always been careful. I'd never wanted to get in a routine, so to speak, of just going out and singing, because this ministry that we've been entrusted with to go out and spread the gospel is very important. So it's, if you're not careful, you'll get into the routine of getting on the bus, getting up, going set up, go eat, go set up and sing and get back on the bus. And if you're not careful, you can get in a routine of that thing and really forget or leave out the main reason. So we've been careful to try and maintain Bible studies and prayer on the bus and try to keep that in the forefront. But I think that has helped us tremendously to keep our focus.
Yeah.
We're talking to Mike Lefevre today on the Southern Gospel News podcast, and if I were to just very grossly define your career as two main categories, you've got your early years, and you were a member of a group, of course, talking Gold City, and then the second part is you're the namesake now. So you're running the show quite literally, and as you look back on that, as stepping into that position of owner, manager. You look back on these years, going back to 2005. What's a big highlight that you would hand off to somebody as advice? Like, okay, this is the biggest lesson in management that I have learned, and maybe it gave you new respect for Tim Riley, or any other group that's been out there when you were going from just a group singer to then stepping into management.
Well. And I know this may sound very cliche, but I'll just tell you one thing that has helped me more than anything, and we preach it all the time when we're up there singing. We always say, we tell people, trust the Lord, exercise your faith. Mm-hmm. And I have found that I have had more peace by doing just that, because I can't even tell you how many times I didn't even know how we were going to fuel the bus up, or I didn't know how we were going to get those new tires, or I didn't know how we were going to do this, or I didn't know during COVID, how are we going to make payroll, or, how is all this going to happen? Yeah. And God has made himself so evident every time something like that happened. And yet the next time we run into an incident where we don't see how it's going to happen, we tend to forget what he's already done. Yeah. And so my advice, if I have any advice, would be exercise your faith, trust the Lord. If he has got you in the place that he wants you to be, he will sustain you. And sometimes you don't see how in the world it can happen. And I felt that way before, but he made a way every time. So, but as far as faith advice, that would be my advice. As far as financial, get a job.
Well, to that first point, your former neighbor there in the Gainesville, Georgia area, the late Larry Burkett, used to have this very simple question that has always stuck with me, and he would always ask, do we trust God, or do we just say we trust God? And I think, especially when you're a professional Christian, it's easy to say all the right things, and then in the middle of the night, you have to ask yourself, do I
Yes.
really believe this? Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
God loves to do God things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God loves to do things where we know there's the only possible way that it could happen is for Him. There's
Yes.
nothing on us. It's
Yeah.
nothing that somebody else did. It has to be Him, and He loves to show us. And if we trust Him, And but I understand, Mike. Boy, I tell you, it's and I think especially as a guy, we're kind of raised to be the fixer.
Yeah. Right.
And we family comes to you, your wife comes to you, kids come to you, fix this. What do I do? Advice. We're supposed to know the answer. Buddy, I'm telling you, there's times when you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know the answer, but I know the one who does.
Oh, that's good.
Amen. That's so true. And I can't tell you how many times though. It's been amazing how many times you talk about the where you knew it was only could be Him that took care of it, and that especially during the COVID. We mentioned during that era where it was definitely a shutdown for churches and businesses and things like that. And I said, how in the world? And here we are. We're still here. Now, I will say this: we are doing this because it's not. We don't have to quit singing.
Yeah.
It's just that we feel that that's what the Lord wants us to do right now. Now, does that mean I'm through? No. I mean, I'm sure Arthur sings every week. I'm still got a song in my heart. I'm still going to sing. So
that's right.
But we're just not going to be on a full-time basis in a full-time ministry. We'll pop up somewhere here and there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you there, Mike. It's very admirable, and from a personal point of view, I totally get what you're doing. For the average gospel music fan who loves your voice, and obviously recordings will never die, but what for the gospel music lover, what can we expect in the future? Do you write songs? Are you going to write blogs? Are you going to keep a website? How as far as your public profile?
I still Karen Peck Gooch, myself, and Danny Jones. We co-host a television show. It's recorded out of Atlanta, Georgia, on Channel 57. We record there. And that is actually, it's catching on a good bit, and it's airing in several different states now,
Nice.
as a matter of fact. And so I intend to continue with that, and then I have some interest in some other ventures in gospel music, and so I'll be around. But we're going to continue to release music because we've got a lot of good music that has never been heard on the radio. So we'll continue to release those and hopefully keep a presence. And then maybe when we show up somewhere, folks won't forget those songs because those were our tools for ministry. Absolutely. And those songs, some of the words of those songs were just so incredible. And so that we want those to be heard, So those are a few things that I plan on anyway.
Well, I tell you what, I'd never forget climbing on the bus with you guys to go eat Mexican food, and we didn't know if that bus was going to make it over the curb or get stuck halfway in that parking lot. But listen, nothing was going to stop us from eating food that day, and so we made it through. And this story probably isn't as funny to anybody else, but it was a life-changing moment on the way to work with you guys in South Carolina. I almost died by the hands of a turkey flying out in front of a big cargo van I was driving, and that thing, it was on two wheels, and we were almost in a ravine. And so we arrived, barely, but we arrived with our nerves shaken. We had a great night that night at that little church in South Carolina, and then we all went to a sweet lady's house and had shrimp and grits, and I can still taste those. Oh, you guys were excellent that night. And so what's the food?
Hey, well, I've told somebody the other day, we sing for fun. We're professional eaters.
That's right. And it probably wasn't lost on God, the humor of a wild turkey nearly killing us right before, and then later where, it has something else to do with food. Anyway, it was just, innovative. That Lefevre name has always been very innovative. And I remember even when you brought back the name of the caravan and the songs of the
Right.
old TV show. And so it's back, it's really cool just to see all that God has done to bless your your extended family too. And this whole thing about, you say, get a job, I've always paid attention to that. You've, I guess, never, whatever, certification or physique or whatever, you've always maintained this thing with firefighting, and Jordan following in your footsteps with that as well.
Yeah, it was something, and that happened during COVID. While I feel like, and it wasn't a lack of faith, but I feel like God gives us wisdom to
Sure.
make decisions. And during that time, I told my son, because this is all he's ever done. He started with this group when he was 13. Now he had a grass cutting business for a little bit before that, but just as a child. But so this is all he's done, all his, since 13. He's 31 now.
Yeah.
So I always think people should have, an idea of, it's always good to know something else. Know how to do something.
Yeah.
And so during that time, we had an excessive amount of time, and with connections that I had, I was able to help him get hooked up with a fire school, and he was able to get certified as a firefighter.
Yeah.
And so he has that credential now under his belt that he can fall back on.
That's cool.
And was ironically, and it's strange that I never, during the whole time that I've been back on the road, all these years, I always kept up my training, and as an EMT and a firefighter, I never let those things expire. And little did I know, years later, that it would come into play.
Well, it set Jordan up for an expectation now. He's going to take some time to raise his little ones, and then when that season of life is over, we expect a big announcement of a Jordan Lefevre Quartet down the road. So no pressure, Jordan.
I hope I'm not too old to be a part of it.
That's right. Papa come sing. Papa come sing baritone.
He'll put you in one of those overstuffed chairs on the stage at a place of honor, probably, right?
Hey, me and Arthur may get us a couple of walkers and go out and sing a duet.
That's right. But you know what Glenn Payne said? He always said, sing low, sing a long time. We may have to sing stuff a little lower, but hey, we'll do it.
Hey, and I found myself doing that more in the past 2 years. We lowered stuff. I thought, boy, what's the point?
Amen to that.
I tell you something else, Daniel, and I think Arthur. See, but Arthur didn't really qualify for this. But we had a little thing back when we sang with the Kingsmen all the time. A couple of the Kingsmen and a couple of us, we had a thing we called the F troop, because we said the F was our high note. And now Arthur, he acted like he was part of that, but he didn't qualify. He was way up above that.
I like it. Well, I'm gonna give a plug here for the LefevreQuartet.com. Depending on when you're listening to this, if you catch it before the complete end of the touring schedule in the fall of 2022, you can still have a chance to see these guys as they're winding down here. But the LefevreQuartet.com online is where you can find the scoop on all of that. And Arthur, Mike, it's been fun talking to you today.
It's been a joy. Thank y'all for inviting me. This has made my day. But I do want to say this: I'm not going away. So I'm like Arthur. We're just hanging. We're just in a different phase right now. So just bear with us. We're gonna keep singing.
That's good. That's good.
Absolutely.
Well, stick with us. We've got more to come here on the Southern Gospel News podcast straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, this is Darren Sutherland. I miss being with you guys, but we're in good hands with Daniel Britt and Arthur Rice on SGNP.
Southern Gospel News podcast with Mike Lefevre today. Hey, by the way, it's Daniel Britt with Arthur Rice. And Arthur, that's fun. I mean, and you guys go back even further than I do. But it's fun just to get to see a different side of someone. And as I alluded to, going from, really, I feel like he grew up in this industry in a major way, and then became such a leader.
He really did. He really did. And you know, you know, you look at it and you think, man, you know, he's got such a great group, and now, and it seems unfair, but you know, but God has different plans for us, and we're just praying for them and praying in their next phase that God will just bless them. And you know, we all have a ministry. Doesn't matter what you do, just going to work every day. Just you know, your life, your family, your work life. That's everybody's ministry. Just to tell people about Christ and live it in front of them. And so we just pray for them and encourage them as they continue to go on.
That's the truth. And hey, by the way, I mentioned it earlier in the program, but the website for all of these good conversations that we have with some of your favorite artists and really movers and shakers in the industry is at southerngospeljnewspodcast.com. And it's been fun here, Arthur. So we'll
great to be back.
Hey, we'll ask our question as we close out here. What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
And these summertime temperatures, that old preacher was right. You know, it make you even more looking forward to heaven to get away from these hot temperatures.
That's right. That's right.
Good hanging with you, Arthur. And friend, you've been listening
too,
to
pal.
Southern Gospel News Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Jesus born and crucified and risen from the dead. Just preach Jesus as he paid for sin with the precious blood he shed. Lord and Savior, King of Kings, Son of God and Son of Man. Just preach Jesus until Jesus comes again. Just preach Jesus until Jesus comes again.
You have been listening to SGNP. Please leave a review, tell your friends and neighbors about our show, and leave that 5-star review. SGNP is currently ranked as one of the top gospel music podcasts globally by feedspot.com. SGNP is produced by BG Ad Group and BG Podcast Network of Marietta, Georgia. For more information or production help on your podcast, call them at 770-874-3200.